Hi, this is Em, and today I want to start going into resin. That's been one of the most frequently asked topics that I've had a couple people ask about. And so I think I'm going to do this in three parts, is what I'm thinking, because to me, resin's a little bit complex, and I'm going to be doing it in real time. So again, first thing, scrub along the timeline or fast forward it to cut to the chase if there's something that you want to hear about. I'm going to be, of course, going into detail. This will probably be a longer video today. I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly on some of the resin that I've done and why I think it happened. And I've got a number of thoughts on the subject. So if you want some detailed resin uh, mind dumps, so to speak, then stay tuned. And I'm thinking that this first little bit today is going to be about preparing your items to resin. I think that's probably the most complex of the whole thing. Actually, pouring the resin is very simple. And then in the second segment, I'll actually do a resin demonstration, and that's where I'll talk about the resins I've used and different kinds of resins and so on, and that'll be separate. And then the third one will probably just be a wrap-up. The things that we do in the resin demonstration, I will show you the results and any final thoughts that I have on the matter. This will be discussing resin not only as it relates to jewelry that I do, but in tiles and just some general ideas. Some of the products that I talk about that I use before I resin, I went over most of those in my wet medium video, and so I will put links to those. And those, again, were detailed videos. Products showed you the cans and the canisters and the containers. So this would kind of go hand in hand with that as far as some of the products that I talked about. So let's get down to business, and if this sounds like something you're interested in, stay tuned. Let's start with some things that I feel were successful. And so I brought a couple of pieces out, and here is a couple of, this is, now you can see in this necklace that this is resin, and it turned out what I consider perfectly, in the sense that, trying to see if we can get a good picture here, in the sense that the flowers basically look like they would look if you put contact paper over them. And there's a little secret here, and that is because I actually did laminate these flowers. So one technique for protecting your flowers for resin is using the laminate technique. And again, that's another video that I went into, is laminating over flowers, because I call that dry coverage, dry protection. Dry protection, laminating, wet protection, mediums, Mod Podge, anything that would be considered wet. And if you look real close, this lighting is not looking the best. You can't even really tell that I laminated. I can't even get it close enough to show you what it is, because no one would know. It's just not perceptible. And I think it's a very successful technique, and one that I plan to use more and more, because when I do jewelry, one of the goals is, at least for me anyway, and everybody's goal is different, is I want the flowers to shine through. I don't want them to go transparent. I don't want them to go brown. I don't want them to funk up, so to speak. I want them to basically look like what they look like before I resin them. Now here is a piece where this is a petal, this is a geranium petal, and I protected it with, what did I put on there? Take notes what you're doing, because I've been really bad over the years about taking notes, and then I'll go back to do something later and go, I don't remember what the heck I did. I'm assuming that I probably nail polished these. So next to hot laminate, as opposed to cold laminate. Hot laminate meaning I ran it through a hot laminating machine, which you see me demonstrate in that laminate video. My next favorite thing to prep flowers for resining is clear nail polish. And I've used that for years, and I don't know what to say about why it works so well, but it just does work well on flowers. And so I'm 99% positive that this was prepped with nail polish. It may have been prepped with some matte Mod Podge. That would have been my other go-to medium. So that's what this one was prepped with. And it's a little painstaking. Same thing with this one. Now, and this is a larkspur. One thing to say about these two is this is a single layer. It's one sheer layer of a petal. And so it's easier to deal with. This one, because it's got multi-layers on there, excuse me, it has multi-layers on there. If there's any loose petals, you want to go down in there and use your matte Mod Podge or lift it up and use your clear nail polish and kind of get it to where it sticks down so it becomes a more cohesive unit. But this is just a larkspur flower that has been resined, and then it's had the charm attached with this little Swarovski crystal. Same with this guy. This had a little silver charm attached with a little Swarovski that I put in the middle there, just to decorate it up a little bit. So that was prepped with nail polish, I'm pretty sure, too. This one is a lupin, and this is on a paper background, and I'm pretty sure I prepped it with nail polish, too. I figure anything that turned out successful has probably got a lot of layers of nail polish on it. And so that one worked out okay. This one I did in a square mold. See, it's got a silver-plated veil on it, and this is a hydrangea. And again, I nail polished this. Now, all these flowers here that I'm showing you that I use for jewelry have been color enhanced. And again, that's another detailed video that I've already done. So if you're interested in color enhancing flowers, you can go watch that one and see what I use and why I use it and the whole little story about that. And anyway, this is color enhanced, and then protected with, again, I'm sure, nail polish. And this turned out what I consider to be. This is what I strive for, is to have an item, like I say, it just doesn't fall away into transparency, and the blossom is more or less pretty flawless as far as handmade nature can be. Here's another one I really like. This is Baronia, and this actually has nail polish background. It wasn't put on paper like the lupin. I have what do you call it? A shimmery type of a light blue nail polish that I like to use, and that was the background. And then again, I'm sealed them with nail polish and then poured the resin on top, so that worked good. This one has nothing to do with resining, but I just wanted to show you a compare and contrast. This is a glass dome, and you still have to find a way to adhere the glass dome to your background, and so I'll get another thing to demonstrate here, or to talk in a minute, but I just wanted you to see the effect of the glass dome versus the resin. And personally, I feel that if you just want to see the flowers without the reflections, then resin is going to be the better choice. But for really quick and easy, and sometimes a little different feel, there's glass. But you get a lot more reflection with glass. It's harder to see the actual true flower. You get more of a, anyway, so just something to think about, that there is also glass. Why use resin versus glass? I think it depends on the look you're going for. And sometimes if I have a really, really nice arrangement that I want to show through without being infringed upon by glare, I will prefer the resin. Other times the glass. So that, on the subject of glass, real quickly sidetracking, here, let me show you a couple things that I did under glass that, again, it's the same concept. You have to prepare your flowers if you're going to, for example, this one I'm pretty sure I used something like Glossy Accents or E6000, and what I mean by that is that I take the medium, whatever it is, and I put a little dollop in the center, and then I take the glass, which actually, if I didn't have all this stuff here, I would do a demonstration because I want to do that to this. This has been hot laminated, and so I know that when whatever I use with Glossy Accents, E6000, you know, Diamond Glaze, Glossy Accents, those would be my choices for sticking down. I know that this is going to remain exactly like that. It isn't going to deteriorate or do anything, and I'm just going to put the glass on and smear it around, and it will look good. These, on the other hand, this one, even though I'm sure I protected it a little bit, it wasn't enough, because whatever I put on it, and I'm assuming it was Diamond Glaze or Glossy Accents or one of the ones I just mentioned, it started to interact with the flower, and while I still think it's pretty, it's just when I'm critiquing it down to a finite opinion here, it's not holding up the way I would prefer it. This would look a lot better had I done a hot laminate on it, because then the petal would have stayed exactly how it looks. You know, it would have held more it would have held up better. It wouldn't be getting this brownish stuff in there the way it would have been looking more like this. This one I was very unhappy with. I don't know if you can tell from the glare, but this is the forget-me-not, just totally browned out. So even whatever I put in the medium on top of here, by the time I laid the wet stuff to adhere the glass down to on top of it, it browned out too. So I think for glass, all told, my personal leaning is I'm just going to hot laminate it, and then just make sure that whatever you use, whether it's Glossy Accents or one of the other items, that it will stay on, that it won't come off. And most of my tests with glass is it works just fine. I've just found no easier way. There's a lot of videos out there, and I'm sure some of you have better answers than I do on how to adhere the glass to the frame with the flowers, but I just don't have the perfect answer for that. So for now, I'm going to hot laminate, and then I'm going to put my my medium on, and we're going to go from there. And if I remember, I'll do a quick demonstration, because it'll only take about a minute or two to do that. So let me set that aside. All right, so we've talked about the things that I consider success, in the sense that they came out looking good, they didn't go away, and all the things that I've already talked about, so I won't rehash that. Let me move this out of the way. So that's the good news. Now for the bad news, and I've got lots of bad news. Give me just a second here to get organized, please. All right. The first thing I want to talk about is flowers. I grow most of my own flowers, and I've started pressing flowers when I was a teenager, and that's been, I don't even want to tell you how long ago, but a long time. But a number of years back, when I was moving around and doing some stuff, I got low on flowers, and so I did buy some flowers from China, and I'm not opposed to buying flowers from China if somebody needs to do that. I don't do it anymore, and I only did it once, but I ordered a lot of different kinds because that's just because I have a business, and that's what I do, is I order things in bulk oftentimes. But what I want to show you that I discovered about some of the flowers from China to be aware of, that I've never noticed with any of the flowers that I press naturally, is what happened to the flowers, not only under the resin, but just in general, some of them. And I don't know if you can see it, but you see how, I don't know how close up I can, no, you're blurring out there. But do you see the dotting on there? The heather I pressed, and you don't have that, that, whatever happens. And it isn't just the verbena. And I thought I pulled something that I had with verbena in it, but I don't see something. But see, here's a verbena out of my garden, and it just won't do that. And here is a Chinese well, I call it tick seed, but you can see on this side especially that same, it's like dry skin, powdery look. I don't know how to explain it. That's from China. This is from my garden, and you can see it doesn't have this, whatever it is, however they press it. Now, this is just a guess on my part, but I'm thinking that maybe they use some sort of well, I can't pronounce the word, but something to help enhance the drying. Maybe they put it between pillows of, one of the techniques I've seen is putting it between pillows with, a drying medium in there, and so maybe that has an effect. But whatever it is, I won't use these under resin or something that really calls attention to whatever happens. They're okay for cards and stuff like that, but, and then this is also from China. I don't know if you can see it, but see how it just, now they color enhance a lot of their stuff. When you see these things that look like this, these are colored. They're not natural. So here's their blue hydrangea, and then here's a blue hydrangea out of my garden. And I don't think did I color enhance? No, I haven't even color enhanced these. So these are natural out of my garden, and I might have color enhanced this one. I can't tell. And then here's one more, which this one's not color enhanced. But you see how, I don't know. I'm not going to keep droning on about it. If it shows up in the video, then you'll see what I'm talking about. If it's like someone just put minute dots on there or something. And again, I wouldn't use this in jewelry because this just is going to show through like that, and it's just not going to be a quality piece. So getting flowers from China is very affordable. And if you don't want to color enhance your flowers and you want these vibrant colors because of their dyed flowers, you can certainly experiment with that. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from doing that. Just be aware that that there's something in the drying process with some of the flowers that is interesting when you work with them in certain ways and may not give you the result you're looking for, so do tests, is what I can say. And I pretty much know from being in the pressed flower market for so many years, like I can tell when I see something on the internet if that's comes from China or not. You can just tell. And it seems like China flowers has really taken over as far as when you go to buy flowers. It's pretty much unless you get little artisans like me and a couple of other people that have been around or are around selling flowers as available, which I do sell flowers as available on my Etsy store, so I'll put a link to that. Yeah, most of the stuff I see out there on Amazon, for example, and even on Etsy to a certain extent, and some other places are from China, pretty much. So I guess I've totally. Oh, here's another. Yeah, see, this is from China. This is not in resin. So let's see if you can tell the difference. Let's look at the back. Can you see the dotting on that? Hopefully that really illustrates the point. So this is from my garden. This is from China. So this is China, this is my garden. All right, enough on China flowers. They are pretty, they have their purpose, they're very affordable, certainly a lot more economical than if you buy flowers from me, and just be aware. So let's move on to a different subject. Preparing flowers for getting ready. Here's some other show and tell I want to do. This turned out very well, and I was looking, this turned out so well, I was looking earlier to see, did I laminate this? And yes, I did. It's a hot laminate under there. Okay, what about this one? I don't think I hot laminated this one. No. No, looks like there's a little dirt on there. I use nail polish and the same paper. So here is a good comparison of the brightness of the paper and the outcome when I hot laminated versus the little more vintage effect that you get when I just did layers of nail polish. These are stained glass, and then I soldered on the sides, and then I put a veil, a piece of charm that I lobbed off of something else and soldered that on for the veil. And actually what I did with these is these also have laminate on them, or contact paper or something. I can tell. Again, if you didn't know it was there, you'd never know it was there. But then what I did was I put the flowers on the glass, and then I put the laminate over it, and then I resined on the top to give it that glass look, and then I soldered. And so all these pieces are pretty much the same way. There's an iridescent piece of glass. I put the flower arrangement on. Did I encase these in laminate? Yep. Yeah, these have all been laminated. Let's see, these are the same techniques as the jewelry that I just showed you. This one, no, there's no laminating. This was simply nail polish, layers and layers of nail polish, and then the resin on top. This is glass, and this is, I haven't done anything with this. This is just a subject for another day. This was JB Weld. I was playing with JB Weld one day, and then I put JB Weld on there, and before it starts to get too hard, it levels out, and then I put this potentee on there, and then I was going to do some other stuff. That's aluminum disc, excuse me, and so I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with that yet. So those were okay. Here's some more epic failures in some instances. This is an epic failure. This was, I don't know what happened. Just nothing's happy about that. I don't remember what I used. I don't remember what I color enhanced with. I don't remember anything except for there's an example of probably the biggest epic fail. This one is, I like it, but it would definitely have to fall under the vintage category, and it kind of, the background kind of ambered out, and that wasn't because of the resin. This one, did I do anything with this one? No, that must have just been nail polish. Here's one that same thing. The background kind of vintaged out, and I'm wondering actually if it's the paper. I don't remember when I did these, if I coated the paper, because the other thing that you need to do is you need to coat your paper, because your paper will wick up resin. And so you want to coat your paper so it doesn't wick up resin, either on the top, on the bottom, or on the sides. And I've done some things where I painted the paper so that it didn't absorb the resin and wouldn't wick up, and forgot to do the sides, and then it went through on the sides here, and then so you could see this discoloration. It didn't do it on this piece, but it did on some other pieces. I don't have one to show you very well right now. So I think that I didn't protect this paper enough, and I think it might be the acidity. So that's something to think about that I never really thought about before. Is the acidic, if I'm using a, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? The kind of paper that isn't acid, you know, that doesn't have any acid in it, then maybe that's why this is happening. It doesn't happen if I use this paper, because I use this paper, I use the same kind of paper a lot, and it doesn't seem to happen when I laminate, but it does when I resin. So just be aware that you need to also protect your paper. This is what I consider a success. Now, this background is another case where I use nail polish. And I noticed the nail polish backgrounds in the bezels, or when I nail polish on top of paper enough, it doesn't have that reaction. It doesn't seem to give a vintage appeal or effect when using resin. Here's another one. I just must have nail polished that one. And here's some more pieces that, here's another fail. I don't know what happened there, but oh, I know what I did. I put it on a translucent paper, and then I affixed it to this beveled round glass, and then I resined the back. And you can see how mottled it is. That's not happy at all. This one didn't turn out. Now, this is using my verbena, so it doesn't have that mottled effect that the one from the China showed you, but I didn't protect the paper enough, and there's no lamina or anything on there, and so I suspect that the acidic nature of the paper and the sheerness of the verbena has caused it to kind of affect the flower and kind of brown it and vintage it a little bit. This is an epoxy sticker. And so again, and I don't think that I protected these flowers. I thought, oh, the epoxy sticker already has its own adhesive on it. I'll just affix my little arrangement into this bezel, and then I'll just put the epoxy sticker on. Well, I think that I needed to do something more, because you can see how it really vented that out too. And this was really a pretty little arrangement. So again, epoxy stickers, glass, anything when you're using wet mediums on top or doing something. This one, I haven't done anything over the top. I'm probably going to resin it. This is just a metal disc with a hole in it. Now, if you're going to resin something with a hole, either put tape on the back or a little piece of clay. Take a little piece of polymer clay and then just plug the hole from the back so that the resin doesn't flow through and create a mess. And I probably, this is ready for resining. I'm probably just going to, when I do my resining, this will get resin. This has a layer of Future on top, which is now called Pledge Floor Care Finish, which I also talk about in the wet laminate video. Okay. So the things that I use to protect the flowers, these we're going to get ready to put resin on. There's a couple things here. This is polymer clay pieces that you already saw me talk about in the polymer clay video, and where I modeled in some, what is this? This was pastels, soft pastels, marbled in to create the background design. Same here. This is very subtle. There's just a little bit of marbling there. And then these are just tiles that I'm making. I haven't finished the back yet. I'm going to paint the back. I just don't know with what yet. Now these two tiles here, the background is jelly plate paper, and I think that I actually was using, this was with starch. This was starch and powdered tempera paint that I used to color the starch. And then this was Tim Holtz Distress Oxide. I was playing with that on the jelly plate, and I really like that. And then this was actually a napkin where it was a two-ply napkin, and the first ply had black and white paisley pattern, and then the white part that pulled off of the main part of the napkin had this residual ghosting of the image that I really liked, and so I thought, oh, I want to use that on a tile. So that's what that ghosting pattern is there. That's from a napkin. So I am just going to use these for tiles, and I'm probably going to use these for jewelry in some fashion. I really like the arrangements and the way they turned out, and which is why I'm going to put resin on them, because to me that's what kind of seals the deal, so to speak, as far as making it look more polished and more professional. If I was going to just use these as a tile on a card or on a mixed media project or something, that I may or may not put resin on, depending upon the end use for the product that I'm working on, if I'm going to sell it or not sell it or give it away. It's all going to factor in. Now, what I did with these, and in my polymer clay video, you need to go back and look and see what turns flowers brown and what doesn't, but in our tests, we know that for the most part, nothing's 100% perfect, that the matte Mod Podge is my go-to medium for adhering flowers on anything. There's something about it that I really like. So I painted the clay with a thin layer of matte Mod Podge and let it dry. And I did that to all of these. I just painted it, and then I started laying down the flowers. Now, when I am, let me bring this back. When I'm painting, I want to kind of show and tell what I'm talking about here, because all right. If I were going to be laying this down, you can either take your matte Mod Podge and just do it right on the piece itself, because this is firm enough that it's going to hold up. It's going to hold up from you putting the Mod Podge on, and then you're going to be able to lift it up, and you're going to be able to put it down on your surface and then pat it down. And same here, I could take just a very, very tiny portion of this guy, and I could put my matte Mod Podge on, and I always work from the center out so I don't tear the flower, and I could pick it up and I could put it down on my piece, and that would be fine. And then I prefer to let it dry before I do the top. That's just me. A lot of people will put it down and then go right over the top. I prefer to let it dry. But there are some things like this that's so sheer that there's no way you're going to be able to put a wet medium on this verbena and be able to pick it up and do anything with it without it just shriveling up and coming, into itself. And so the best technique for that is to take and put your wet medium, your matte Mod Podge or whatever you're using, down, which is what I did for, there's a verbena. What I did there was I put the matte Mod Podge down on the background. In this case, it would have been over the leaf in the background. And then I took the flower, set it on the matte Mod Podge that was still wet, and then just gently tapped it, and then left it alone to dry. And you can see how well that worked, because the flower is still very vibrant. It didn't fade away into translucency. And so that worked really well. So after I had fixed all of these things down and made the arrangements, and I did the same thing to all of this, again, some things I just matte Mod Podge the back and used the Mod Podge like a glue and just put it down in pieces, and other things I just matte Mod Podge the whole area first on the background and then put something on top of it. When I was done making the arrangements, then I put a thin layer of either matte Mod Podge or the PPA. I don't think I talked about this in any of my other videos. Excuse the camera for shaking. I used a thin layer of either this or matte Mod Podge. And then once that dried, then the next day I let it dry overnight. And then I used the floor wax as the final coat. So that's what's on the top. And that's this here. I would normally use nail polish if it was these other items like the jewelry pieces or paper, and it could have even used nail polish on these. The only thing is with the nail polish is that, well, a couple things. One is, in researching polymer clay, I saw a lot of people talking about how nail polish doesn't play well with polymer clay. So that's the reason why I didn't use nail polish on these jewelry pieces, because I was afraid to. And the reason why I didn't cover the top of these with nail polish is because they're so large. And I only use nail polish for small things because it smells so bad. And long-term exposure, meaning if I'm nail polishing a bunch of pieces for an hour or two, it affects me. It just does weird things to me for the rest of the day. So anyway, I put the floor wax on top of these, and that it looks to me like that's going to be fine. And we'll find out, because I don't think I've used floor wax on anything that I've resined before. So that'll be in the third results video when we get all done. So these are going to be resined, and that's what I did to protect them. Some other things that I was working on, and you saw me this, I'm going to resin this. Now this is I'm seeing if I made any notes on the back. No, I think that this was, I'm judging from the brush marks, this was some sort of either that matte PPA or the matte Mod Podge, and then I'm pretty sure I put Future over the top. But I love this little pansy, the color, and it just turned out so well. It's begging for resin. So that's going to have to be resined. And then here's another piece that if I was just using it for a tile on something, I probably wouldn't worry about resining it, but I might resin this because that would really look pretty resined. Let me show you some pieces that were resined. Now, remember when, if you watch any of my prior videos, you're going to see me go through some big excessive trip over this tile and how I baked it in the blue loop and didn't do what it did, and I sanded it down. Anyway, there's a whole big spiel about that on one of my other videos. And you saw me working on it. Well, here's the finished product, just in case you saw that video. And then I put resin on it. And I am really, really happy with the way this turned out. And I'd have to go back and watch that video to find out what did I put down on it. But I'm sure it was some sort of protectant on the clay. And then, I don't know what I protected these. I don't even remember now. I'm sure it was matte Mod Podge and floor finish. But you can see how nicely it's held up after the resin. There's no browning or no vintaging, no nothing. It is just, I'm just really, really happy with that. I'm surprised it turned out so well. Here's another piece that I resined. The one thing you have to watch out for, and I don't know if you can see it on this, is, I'll move it around and see. In the middle you can tell ever so slightly that I didn't dome the resin up enough, that this needed like another drop or two of resin here. And I notice that I do that sometimes. I'll have a really, really pretty piece and go, oh, that's wonderful. And then I'll look at it in the right light and go, oh no, I've got to put more resin on, resin it again, because it wasn't enough. If I just use this as a tile on a card or something, I won't worry about it. If I do something more fancy with it, then I might. But that's just something to look out for, is as long as your resin isn't falling, going to look like it's going to fall over the side, you want to make sure to dome it up enough that if you have these more bulkier sections like the centers and stuff like that, that you have enough that when the resin dries down, that you don't have, I'm going to call it pithing for lack of a better word. I don't really know what the technical term would be, but here's another piece that I resined, and then I took and I used like a really fine grade sandpaper and sanded on it. And if you do some sanding techniques or some polishing and buffing techniques, you can take it down to a satin finish if you want to get the gloss off there. So it does sand and all that kind of stuff real well. And here's another piece that I resined, just a little leaf. Anyway, oh here, this is begging for resin too. This is just, this has future floor wax on top, but it's got to be resined. And I think that this one needs to be resin too. Okay, so when we do the resin demonstration, you'll probably see some of these things come back. So what is the takeaway here? The takeaway is that pay attention to where you get your flowers from, because some of them are better quality than others. The things that I find most successful for protecting paper and flowers is either matte Mod Podge, one of the other things that, if you look back at my video, don't turn things brown, and nail polish. Clear nail polish is your friend, and or laminating, especially hot laminate. If you have iron, I showed how you can iron hot laminate if you don't have a hot laminate machine. And that you also have to worry about acidity of paper, evidently, and you're going to have that whether or not you use epoxy stickers, or you use resin, or you affix flowers to glass with some sort of wet medium. Here's something that I hot laminated, and I'm going to put resin on it. I could leave it like that, but I think I'm going to do something more with it, and I think I might hot resin that. Okay. Play around and see. Oh, here, I didn't really highlight on this one. This one was the piece of paper that I protected, and then I put, I didn't drill the hole first. This did not have a hole before I resined. And then I put resin on top, let it dry, then I turned it over, and I put resin on the bottom. So this is faced with resin on both sides. And this looks like parchment paper. And it did well. I must have protected the parchment paper pretty good, because I don't see any wicking of resin in there. It didn't affect the paper, didn't vintage out the background for the flowers. And then I drilled the hole into the top, so it could be mounted that way. And then I don't know if you want to see it or not, but I'm perfectly willing to, let's just take, if I can find where I put it, this guy, and let's just take some diamond glaze, because I'd rather use diamond glaze. And I'm just gonna, this has been hot laminated, and we're just going to adhere this glass piece I'm cleaning the glass. I should use rubbing alcohol, but this will do. This will do. And then I'm just going to simply, well, normally I'll start a little bit first, get any air bubbles out, and then I'm just going to put a little tiny, just like that. And then I'm going to put it down on here, And I'm just going to move it around. Making sure that it's fully covered. And flowers centered, and that's it. And it's fully covered everywhere. And I'm going to let it dry, and then I'll trim around, and then you can always use a nail file or something to smooth the edges after that on the back. You know, you want to go file from the back out so that you're not affecting the glass on the front. And so that's done. That's all it takes to do something like that. It's very quick and easy. It's just if this didn't have laminate on it, I would have wanted to seal the paper, and I would have wanted to seal the flowers and do all those things so that so this doesn't do weird things. Okay, I guess that's long enough. If I've forgotten anything, I will bring it up in the next video, which will be us actually doing some resin stuff. So thank you for watching and hanging in there, and hopefully I've imparted some information that you might be able to use. And as always, try your own experiments, because what works, or in this case doesn't work for me, may or may not have the same results for you. So thank you very much, and talk to you down the line.